Good morning. We're very glad to see you this morning. We have a wonderful program. Lots of things happen at Plymouth Church, and it's hard to keep track of them all. So this morning, we're going to hear from the heads of the Leadership Council and the boards of Plymouth Church. And within those structures, kind of everything happens that we try to keep track of. And so if you want to know a kind of a full picture of Plymouth, you're in the right place today. And we're so happy to see you both here and if you're tuning in at home. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any technical problems, please use the chat and Alex will help you out. And if you have a question, please use the Q&A function. And this is a happy time because we're coming together again. It's also been a sad week in a couple of ways. And now I'd like to introduce the head of our Leadership Council, Nancy Gores, and she'll talk to us about those things and about the good things that are happening at Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. It's so good to be here in person and here with you wherever you're watching from. I am Nancy Gores. I'm chair of the Leadership Council through June 30th, and then we will have a transition. On the Leadership Council, we have the chairs of all of our boards, the co-chairs of the Racial Justice Initiative, our 3 clergy, Ann Seltz, who is our secretary, and Eric Olson, O-L-S-E-N, who is the chair-elect, and he will become chair on July 1st. Eric is also, as the chair-elect, he is chair of the nominating committee. And we are about to gear up the nominating committee because we are all volunteers. And there's turnover with volunteers, and we need new, excited, passionate people to join our work. So if you hear something in the presentations that interests you, I want to be a part of that, or I'd just like to know more about that, reach out to either the chairs or to me or to the clergy, and we can get you connected. So feel free to do that. Before I tell you a little bit more about the work of the Leadership Council, I just want to take a moment to sort of ground ourselves, to be present in this moment for whatever is weighing on you, whatever your concerns are. I am particularly thinking personally of the folks that are struggling in Ukraine, and I am thinking of our Ann Manning, who is on the Leadership Council and has gone into hospice this week. And so I know we have sent up our private prayers, but let's do some community energy for the world and for Ann. And the work continues. So the Leadership Council does its work with the purposes of the church within, among, and beyond in mind, and with the growth task force report, 6 areas of growth in mind. And we also have, as part of the growth task force, there was a recommendation for better or different or more marketing. So we have a marketing task force that has been working this year. How do we are there other ways to let people know who we are, where we are, and that we'd love for people to join us in this work if it is their interest and be with us? And so that report is coming to the Leadership Council in April. And then we all will have our part to play in that, because welcoming people we know and people we don't know and expanding our welcoming presence will be important as we do God's work in this church. The other thing the Leadership Council does is we coordinate the Christmas festival. Each board plays a part in that, but you need to have a coordinating place to kick it off, and that's one thing that we do. We also meet together and just hear what everybody's doing and see if there's any intersection, collaboration, or support that we can give to each other as we do our work. And the nominating committee, in that, as I said, that the chair-elect is the chair of that, and that's Eric Olson. We're each going to take about 3 minutes to tell you the highlights of the work. Everyone in this room could go on for much longer and would love to, but we're going to try to give you the highlights of what we're excited about, what we've done at each board level. And we're going to start out with Tom Anderson, who's chair of the Board of Community Life.
Good morning. The Board of Community Life is an active board at Plymouth Church. The community that we refer to in Board of Community Life is this community, our church community. We certainly intersect with our wider community and with the whole world, but we're primarily concerned with making sure that everybody who comes to Plymouth Church feels that they're a part of the church. This is a blessed community, many things going on, and the Board of Community Life tries to bring that all together. Historically, we have several different things that we have done. We have offered new member inquiry classes, and then we have welcomed new members into the church. We've had a follow-up luncheon and some follow-up contact with those new members to make them feel welcome and a part of our community. We have produced the after church coffee hour. Now, we haven't seen that for a while. Last Sunday was the first Sunday that we've got it, and it is back. It's being offered in Jones Commons so that if you want to grab a cup of coffee, we've got the heaters outside under the portico so that you can stand outside and enjoy a cup of coffee after the service. And we're hoping to continue that. Sometimes it'll be formal, sometimes much less formal, but it's a chance for us to visit together, and we do that best with coffee. So we have an annual event, the 50-year member reunion. This church has a huge number of people who've been members here for 50 years, and we want to recognize their dedication and their service. And so we do that annually and in the past it's been with the celebratory breakfast, and that's been a couple of years since we've been able to do that. We're hoping to be back. We found other ways to celebrate that time, but we hope to be getting back together. We also help sponsor the 100. Okay, we're back. All right. It's nice to be back. All right. Thank you, Alex and Cody. The Board of Community Life would also like to really sponsor new, enhanced, improved small groups. A large church like ours the real contact with small groups is really just absolutely critical. I often say that the small groups that I'm a part of are groups that I'm growing old with. There was a time when it was groups that I was enjoying middle-aged with, and also groups where I learn things, groups where I cause good trouble, groups where I learn about the community. So it's all important, and we would like to do a better job of fostering those groups. And so we are going to really try and get some wheels on that project. So that's what we're up to. Mike McGettigan.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning. I'm Mike McGettigan. I'm Chair of the Board of Finance and Administration. This is my second and final year as Chair. The Board of Finance and Administration, below that board, we have the Investment Committee that works with Wells Fargo and our commingled investments. We also have the Stewardship Committee, which I hope all of you are aware of. And if you haven't made your pledge, please make it today. We also have the Personnel Committee, as well as the Buildings and Grounds Committee, as well as the Archives flows up into the Board of Finance, and we provide the budget for the archives work that is done at Plymouth. Right now, we're in the midst of about 4 to 5 months of working on the 2022-23 annual budget, which is a lot of work for this board. And we actually have more meetings typically than just our monthly meeting to go over the budget. As we go into the budget, I would actually encourage everybody that's a member or visitor to review last year's annual report and the letter that Dwayne and Claire put together from the Treasury. Specifically, the line that I'm going to keep coming back to for our work is that we have to have conversations, to quote, imagine creative ways to prioritize our church programs and commitments in ways that reflect the purposes of the church. Our additional work that we've been working on is supporting the staff to update the 10-year facilities plan for maintenance and replacement of things in the building. We also this year with Mike McAllister, who's the church treasurer, as well as Ray Martin, took on some financial initiatives, including improving budget guidelines, improving the understanding of donor board designated funds, also additional focused on giving, as well as enhanced monthly reporting. Lastly, our board has a regular cadence of things that we look over. And I think this last year, we've done a better job of staying on top of that cadence. That includes working with Wells Fargo twice a year to have them come to our board meeting to go over performance of our commingled investments. We also review the restricted funds that Plymouth has as part of our investments, as well as go back to look at the 2014 capital campaign, as well as our board actually has I think it's 15 to 20 page policy manual that governs our board and Board of Finance activities. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to look at our meeting minutes, which are very thorough on the website. We have about 1.5 years worth of meeting minutes. It's pretty detailed as to our board's work. Next, I'll invite Nancy Gores up to speak about fine arts.
I was surprised. What, I'm talking again? Oh, yes, I am. Diane Hallberg is the chair of the Fine Arts Board, my apologies, the board, and she's not able to be here. So I'm just going to give you a few of the highlights of what she sent to me to share with you. The purpose of the Fine Arts Board: we believe the arts are an avenue to the sacred, that art challenges, comforts, and inspires as it deepens our spiritual development, congregational connections, and commitment to new and diverse voices. Plymouth has, I think, a part of its identity is that it is sees the arts as the sacred journey, part of the sacred journey. The few ways in which the board has done that work, focused on things this year, are they have been supporting the rich offering of music that we've heard at both the 9 and the 11 o'clock worship services. The gallery committee is about to get energized again because we are now back in person. And so we can look forward to the work of the gallery committee in the Jones Commons, not Con Theater area. The Fine Arts Board has purchased 2 multicultural nativity paintings to add to Plymouth's permanent collection that's displayed in the Advent and Christmas season. They have recently approved a final bid so that we can store all 4 embroideries at one time. And when something else is up in Guildhall, before we'd only been able to store 3. So we had to find another way to store all 4, and that's been tasked to the Fine Arts Board. And they have a subcommittee that is working to create a space in the Parsons Room, and they're working with the Archives Committee to display the work of the needlers and honor their artistic legacy. So those are sort of the key work of the Fine Arts Board this year. Next up, we have Ed Kelly, who will be speaking for Mary Jordan, Chair of the Board of Outreach. EJ Kelly, sorry. Ed.
Good morning. I am here to speak to you about the Board of Outreach. Alex, do we have slides for this? So, and will it show up here too? Okay. When you think of outreach, please think of so the first one. There you go. When you think of outreach, please think of these friends of ours. They're the ones that do this work, make these decisions, and are fun to work with. The Board of Outreach oversees about 17 programs and committees at Plymouth that are committed to our neighbors and us, Plymouth living its role beyond the church. And then we also oversee the Community Fund, which funds 16 different organizations in our community and around the world. So we can't possibly talk about all of them today. So I'm going to do it from a bigger picture approach, but you can go to the Plymouth website and you see these 2 landing pages. You can learn more about these individual programs if you go there. So the Board of Outreach produced this year a document called Living Out Our Love in the World. It's a proposal, it's a 5-year proposal to for our community fund expenditures, and it's proposing an increase in our community fund expenditures over the next 5 years by $100,000, 5 years out, $100,000. Presently, these are the community fund recipients. This came out a little differently, but the largest 50% of our funds go to food and housing sort of programs. The others are mental health, secondary education, refugees, truth and healing. And we're going to keep that going, but where I want to go next, if you could, Alex. My pie charts didn't come out the same as when I created them, but the key is with the community fund, and this really says what we're about, is we're trying to, what we're trying to do is we recognize that we give contributions, not just of money, but of our time, talent, and using this facility. So we try to not just look at a financial transaction, but basically leverage where we're also giving our time and talent and use of this building and fund those organizations. So it's creating relationships. If you could move on to the next one. Presently, we're focused on supporting organizations in this neighborhood and neighborhoods like ours, and we're going to keep doing that with the funding we have. If you could go on to the next one real quick. And we're funding priority areas. So number one, we will only fund programs and organizations that further social, economic, racial, or environmental justice. That's right out of the purpose of the church. Our priority funding areas for the next 5 years are racial justice, housing insecurity, food insecurity, building a sustainable food system, and climate and environmental justice. We will make decisions about how to support those programs and fund them by talking to the people in the church that have specialized in this area, whether it's racial justice or climate and environmental justice. We view this as something we need to do together and collaboratively. And if you go to the last slide, I'll leave you with that. We're also doing, keep going one more because I need to finish. And this shows where we'd like to go over 5 years, is bring our funding of community fund organizations back to where it was in 2013. Thank you.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Johanna Schusler and I'm the co-chair of the Board of Spiritual Formation, which sometimes we lovingly refer to as BOSIF. I also have some slides here, but this morning I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our board does and the spaces that we kind of help to nurture here in the church, and hopefully inspire some of you who are listening to get more involved in our board. So just a minute here. Thank you, Alex. So we can go to the next slide. So the purpose of the Board of Spiritual Formation, like as you're hearing, a lot of the purposes of these boards overlap, right? We're all here to support the community of Plymouth Congregational Church, both inside and outside of our walls. The Board of Spiritual Formation purpose is to really provide spiritual formation, growth, and development opportunities outside of the worship service for all ages, all walks of life, wherever you are on your path. That's really our goal. The programming here within Plymouth that our board supports is the church school. Sundays at 10 education hour, which you are participating in right now. That Sundays at 10 hour consists of Sunday forum. Hello, here we are. The group discussion hour, which is another offering that's happening right now in another room in the church, as well as contemplative practice, which similarly is happening right now in another place in the church. So that Sundays at 10 education hour, we support programming for that. Our board also supports non-Sunday spiritual exploration activities. I'm sure many of you have participated in a workshop or a book study, taken in a speaker, spiritual exploration opportunities. Sometimes they happen on Wednesday nights or Tuesday mornings. Those also fall under our board's nurturance. Our board supports the library as well and Theater 45 Degrees. Next slide, please. So our board is made up of a variety of committees, as are most boards, and you can see them here. So our committees include the Committee for Children, Youth, and Family, which does a lot, primarily the programming for church school, the Plymouth Contemplatives, the Sunday Forum Committee, which supports this offering right here, the Library Committee, and Theater 45 Degrees. And then our board also does work outside of the committees. So the board itself oversees Sundays at 10 and the offerings that aren't covered by committees. We also do coordinate the spiritual exploration opportunities that happen outside of Sunday mornings. The Lenten meditations are sponsored by our board. We participate in the Christmas festival, as all boards do. And then we also, as all boards are, we are charged with kind of measuring and evaluating how we're doing and how are we being consistent with the growth task force recommendations. So for us, the work of our board this year, we've really focused on building out our Sundays at 10 offerings and kind of riding that wave of, are we in person or are we virtual? What we hope to do next is continue to work to develop our mission and vision, as well as guiding principles for our board. We'd like to clearly define a desired future state. What does success look like for our board? How do we know that we're delivering on our vision? We'll be continuing to look into our program offerings. Are they in alignment with this vision? Are they meeting the needs for spiritual formation in this community? And then working to develop some evaluative criteria so we can get feedback from you all on how we're doing and what all you'd like to see. Are we being successful? So thank you so much for having me. I hope that you're interested in our board. And I would like to introduce Linda Campbell. Oh, sorry. As I introduce Linda Campbell with Racial Justice Initiative, you can review our list of lovely members of our board. Can you scroll up one more where I think, oh no, we got them all. Thanks, Alex. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, as you know, I'm Linda Campbell, and last week I accepted a request, I received an invitation to serve as interim co-chair of the Racial Justice Initiative. I accepted that gladly and humbly to step in for Ann Manning. And so just wanted to acknowledge her and ask you to please hold her in your hearts and in your prayers, and also her family and her dearest friends who are with her in hospice right now. So on to the work. Our purpose statement is to live out our faith and values by accelerating Plymouth's actions to heal pervasive racial injustice through individual, congregational, and community transformation. We work to deepen our personal awareness of white advantage in systemic racism through a spiritual, honest, and compassionate approach to ourselves and to others. And we cultivate our Plymouth community commitment to build awareness and work to dismantle racial structures in our personal lives, the life of our congregation, and in the life of our community. And we foster relationships and opportunities to listen to learn from, and to partner with organizations led by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, along with Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and all allies who are committed to nurturing racial justice in our community. The Racial Justice Initiative, I will change to RJI right now, which for the first time is now a sanctioned part of the Leadership Council, also has a subcommittee called Reimagining Community Safety, RICS. Both groups have offered extensive programming from which the Plymouth community benefits, and among the many activities we offer are book studies, spiritual reflection circles, weekly vigils, the Seeing White podcast series, presentations of the cities of Minneapolis 3 charter amendments, the This I Believe racial justice personal statements, a visit by the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, a multimedia discussion group called Intersection, involvement for the first time in Plymouth's Christmas Festival, Sunday forums like this, and the George Floyd Memorial Vigil, which we held on the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. The RICS committee, besides offering events like the charter amendment discussions and Keith Ellison's visit, is actively engaged in city processes that seek to enact real and lasting change. RICS's purpose is to bring the moral power of the faith community to leverage our voices to reimagine and transform community safety in the city of Minneapolis and throughout Minnesota. RICS focuses on ensuring mutual thriving of all people and all communities. Our 2 most current activities that are upcoming and are available to the congregation here at Plymouth and also the community are number 1, the Interfaith Action Project that we're working with the Department of Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington on. It's called Building the Beloved Community. The first session will be held on March 3rd via Zoom. And if you want to check out more information about that, and I really encourage you to, this is going to be an amazing process. Check out the Friday emails. There's a lot of detailed information, and also on the website. Aside from the March 3rd visit session, there will also be, I think, 2 more sessions after that, which are not scheduled right now. And then we have a visit by an expert in community organizing and social movement building named Claudia Albano, who's becoming in May to do a 1-day training on social movement building and community organizing. And there'll be more on this in future bulletins and things like that. And finally, we're always looking to add new members. So if you have any interest in either RJI or the RICS group, please let Barb Iverson, who's the co-chair with me, myself, or Seth Patterson know. And I will introduce Maureen Tannis, the chair of the Board of Worship.
Thank you. I'm Maureen Tannis, and I'm Chair of the Board of Worship. I've been honored to serve in that capacity this year, and there's 9 of us on the board. We each serve three-year terms. People who are at various stages of life and who can offer their own perspective. And there's a nice balance between people who attend the 9 o'clock service, people who attend the 11 o'clock service on our board. So we can keep all of those worship needs in mind. The purpose of our board is to support the worship services to ensure inspirational, welcoming worship that realizes the purposes of the church. And so that includes the oversight, the management of our services, the worship content, scheduling, music details. For example, I'm going to bow out if you're early today, because one of my tasks today is to make sure that our ministers have water at the pulpit. So, these things don't just sort of happen. Somebody does them. And we have several committees on our board that support our work. We have a first service committee, a second service committee. We have an ushers and greeters committee. We have a communion committee. And we have a memorial committee. We support the memorial committee, that oversees the funeral services and memorial services. We are involved in any decision-making around changes to worship to make sure that changes to the content are done with intention and thoughtfulness. If clergy have ideas of things they want to offer or change, those are addressed with the board. And so we try and balance any change with honoring our history and our unique identity. Some of the decisions that we make are soon we'll be deciding how many services we'll have Christmas Eve of 2022, what time those services will be. We made the intentional decision to maintain our 2 services. There was discussion questions about, when we go back in person, are we going to just have 1 service? And those services are very stylistically different. Those have been intentionally offered as something different. And so we will be maintaining those 2 services. We made decisions around identifying which Sundays we would have 1 service. So for example, Youth Sunday, Confirmation Sunday, that kind of thing. In the past 2 years, the board has supported moving to online worship and doing virtual services. We supported resuming in person under the big top last summer, resuming in person in the sanctuary, how lovely that was temporarily. And then we supported going back to online, and now we're back supporting the details of being back in person. We developed an offering of services on Sundays at 5, a contemplative series. Our board member, Chris Lance and Beth Faith, are responsible for the development of that, which has been very successful. And we did have to take a break with that. Those weren't as easily offered virtually, so those will be resuming in person next Sunday. Some of the upcoming goals of the board, in addition to all of the details and the management of things that we're going to be looking at, is how do we partner with the Racial Justice Initiative, and how can we be intentional in our worship offerings with that? An ongoing discussion is how do we involve children in our second service? Because of the stylistic differences, the first and second service, people are missing having children in second service. How do we make that feel welcoming? How can we have them participate in a meaningful way? Again, supporting the stylistic differences of the 2 services. Acknowledging that. And so how do we, though, continue to forge our connection as a congregation and unity in that way? And I think that's, partly why partnering with boards like Community Life and Spiritual Formation and things can be so important and meaningful. And then, I think an ongoing discussion item for our board is, as we resume in-person worship, hopefully, knock on wood, that we can continue to offer this as the pandemic subsides or is more manageable. What is worship going to look like? The virtual online offerings have been very widely received. We have several hundred people that tune in to our 3 services, our 9, 11, and our 5 o'clock. So, that's going to be here to stay. So how do we continue to offer that, but at the same time, make in-person worship attractive and meaningful to people? So please consider joining our board. We'll likely have 2 or 3 positions open this summer. What we really ask for are people who believe that worship is an important part of the life of our church, people who attend regularly one of our services, and who can be open-minded to what is worship, what does worship look like. And so I am going to turn it back to Jackie for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you. My goodness, a lot to take in. We thank you very much, the heads of the boards. And I'm going to look up at Alex to see if we have questions.
Yep, we've got a couple questions. First one is from John Humphrey, and he's wondering, please give an example of a good trouble group and any good trouble you/they have gotten into.
It's a good question. That's a good question from John. Good trouble groups would include certainly racial justice groups. There's a vigil every Tuesday where we walk around the building with signs and a presence in the community saying that things are not right and they need to be fixed. The immigrant working group maybe can cause trouble because it's doing things differently. It's making a group of non-citizens welcome here. There's the environmental justice group can rattle some cages, and they need to, and it's important work to do. So those are the 3 that come to mind.
Second question from John Humphrey is, does PCC directly support Interfaith Coalition on Immigration? If not, we should.
Thank you, John, for that comment. That's well received.
Next question is from Rebecca Miller, and she's wondering, how did Theater 45 become a part of spiritual formation rather than fine arts?
So that's a really great question. I'm not sure that I know the exact answer. I'm sure that there is one, so I apologize. I don't have something satisfying for you, but I do believe, so Seth is the minister of spiritual formation and theater. And so I think that probably has something to do with it. I also think that the vision, if I can, I hope I'm not speaking incorrectly here, but of Theater 45 Degrees is really to tell those stories by voices that are not often heard. And those stories can be a tremendously important part of our spiritual development and spiritual formation. So while I'm not sure exactly why organizationally the decision was made to put it in our board, I think that it fits very, very well with the work that our board is doing with providing spiritually formative opportunities for our community.
It looks like that's all we've got for open questions. Did you have any, Jackie?
I've got one if I can, anyone here? Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Jim Leslie. I'll preface my comments and questions by saying I was the first chair of the Board of Spiritual Formation under the new organization. It's my understanding that part of the new organizational model was created to improve or to encourage higher participation of the congregation in all the leadership responsibilities within the church. And I think we had, I want to say, at least 3 years before, from the start of the leadership model until COVID hit. And so I'd be curious if anyone knows if in fact that was happening. In other words, is it getting easier or was it getting easier to recruit people, and was participation in the life of the church by more congregation members? Was that actually happening?
Nancy, would you have an answer?
Hey, thank you, Jim. It's good to see you. It's good to have you back here in person. I don't have a quantitative answer for that. I've got a couple of answers for that. I've been on the nominating committee for 3 years, just happenstance. I get different roles on it and it worked out that way. And we're always working hard to find people to nominate to be on the boards. And it's a collaborative effort. We brainstorm together, we look for nominations from people, and then we just sit together and go, oh, let's look at this list of people. That person would be good. Let's reach out to that person. So we work to do that. And that's always a work in progress, Jim. I don't know if that's gotten easier or not. But that's one of the reasons we're doing this forum, is to not only let people know what's happening, but to hopefully encourage people to reach out to the nominating committee and say, I would like to be a part of this. This fits for me. What I think has happened, Jim, is we're talking at the board level here, but every board has a lot of working committees that do so much within the church. And you can be on a committee and you don't have to say, I'll do this for 3 years. You can say, I'll do this for now. I'll do this for a year. You're not like locked in. If a 3-year commitment is hard for you, you're not locked in on that. And that is where I think there's more opportunity for participation. And I think we need to do, one of my hopes with Jackie sponsored this for me, inspired this for me, is to try to find a way for people to see what committees do we have under which boards, easier access on the website, for example, or maybe in our annual report, so people know all the opportunities that exist, and maybe that will be a way to become more involved.
And I think I can add that if you have an interest in anything that's going on, any one of these board people can tell you what their committees are and connect you with the heads of those committees. And as a Sunday Forum person, we always welcome new people on our committee and would love to see any of you join us. And all committees are very open to new members. And if you have any interest, or if you have friends who you think, oh, she'd like to do that, or he'd like to do that, recruit them yourselves and send in a name. But I do think, just my personal observation is that I'm just delighted that we seem to see, as a snowball myself, it's great to see the next generation is really into leadership now. And I think that's wonderful. We're not used to having people here that we can call on. This is a new experience. I love it.
I forgot my do you have to be a member to be on a committee of the church?
No.
But you do have to be a member to be a board member?
Yes.
Okay, just thought, I want to clarify that. Are we sponsoring an Afghan family? Can somebody speak to that? Because that's gotten kind of hidden, I think, and that's fantastic. It's an outreach thing, isn't it?
The immigrant welcoming group is leading that effort. And I can't tell you, I don't know, John Humphrey would be able to help us, or Nancy Siska, but I can't tell you the status of that at this moment. That's one of the 17 committees that reports up to outreach. But I know that's been planned, and it's supported by the Minnesota Council of Churches, are the ones that are connecting us with the family. And I don't know this.
They are here, and Joan Campbell would be an excellent person to talk to. But the family has, I believe, 3 children. 7 children. And they have found housing. I think the father is, the last I knew, was still looking for work. But there's a large group at Plymouth. One group has direct contact with the family and does things like take them to doctor's appointments and things like that. And another group is just kind of backup and will supply diapers and oh, Joe Thompson and Erica.
John
Sorry, the last name escapes me.
I've got the mic. John Humphrey says that Joan Thompson and Erica are coordinating this effort. And I would also add, if you look at Friday's email, if you're on the list to get Friday's email, there was a whole list of items people are looking to have donated for our Afghan family and other Afghan families if we get more than we need. And I think there's a collection here at Plymouth for the next few Sundays. So I would, that's another way to be supportive. It was in the Friday email. Yep, there's so much information there, but it was in this Friday's email.
Nancy, would you give the mic to Judy Takinen?
In regard to your question, I think we are not hearing a lot of details about the sponsorship of our Afghan family out of respect for their need for privacy at an extremely stressful time. I think over time you will hear more and more, but there's a large group, as Jackie referenced, that are actively involved in supporting their needs in putting their feet on the ground here and then being able to eventually flourish independently. The children who are school age are all engaged and enrolled in school. They are enjoying it from what I can see in brief conversations with them. So stay tuned and know that this is not meant to be a secret, but it is about being respectful of that family.
Thank you, Judy. I hate to do this, but we need to draw our conversation to a close. Before we go, I'd like to invite you to come back next week, particularly in person. It's just fun to see you all here. We have a wonderful program called Solos and a Backup Plan, co-sponsored by the Mortality Project. And it's good advice on growing old as a single and supports and things that are available. Linda Camp is an expert in that field and will be talking with us. So thank you so much and do come back. And again, thank you to all the board heads. And special thanks to Alex.